Hello, lone wolves, and welcome to the Silent Strength Sigma channel. Sometimes the loudest man in the room is the one with the least to say. The quiet one, he's already 2 steps ahead. We live in a world that celebrates noise, likes, followers, loud opinions, and empty charisma. But here's the brutal truth. The man who says the least often sees the most. Sigma males aren't just playing a different game. They've left the stadium entirely and built their own in the shadows, where rules don't apply and applause doesn't matter. And that's exactly what freaks people out. Because when a man doesn't need validation, doesn't chase status, and isn't afraid to walk alone, he becomes unpredictable. And in a society obsessed with control, unpredictability is the ultimate rebellion. You think being a Sigma male is all cool vibes and mysterious stares. Think again, it's not an aesthetic, it's warfare. Quiet warfare, strategic solitude, social invisibility by design. So before you romanticize the Sigma life, buckle up. We're about to rip the mask off and reveal what it really costs to be the man who refuses to follow the herd. Spoiler alert, it's not for the faint of heart or the loud of mouth. Number 1, your independence isn't admired. It's treated like a threat. Your independence isn't applauded, it's quietly resented. People love the idea of freedom. Be your own man. Chase your dreams. Don't follow the crowd. Sounds great on paper. But when you actually live that way, no groupthink, no need for constant validation, no craving to be liked. It rattles people. You become a walking contradiction to their programmed lives. Suddenly, your independence is no longer inspiring. It's cold, strange, even arrogant. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because your freedom makes them question their chains. Most people are only as free as their social circle allows them to be. They need approval like oxygen. They need the crowd to clap before they believe they're doing something right. But you walk alone. No applause, no announcement, no backup. You don't rebel with noise. You simply opt out. And that quiet defiance triggers people in ways they can't explain. Because if you're fine without being accepted, what does that say about their entire identity built on fitting in? That's the uncomfortable part. Your life becomes a mirror. And not the flattering kind. People start projecting their insecurities onto you. They think you're judging them just because you chose a different path. You didn't reject them, you just didn't need them. And that independence, that's what threatens them the most. You're not lonely, you're not bitter, you just don't. Compromise your peace for shallow connections. And to people who can't go a day without validation, that looks dangerous. Society calls this kind of man difficult, unapproachable, or too mysterious. But what they really mean is, you're not controllable. You're not in the algorithm. You're not emotionally dependent. You don't dance for approval. You don't wear masks to be liked. And that scares them, not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're doing something they wish they had the guts to try. You didn't just talk about freedom, you became it. And nothing makes the crowd more uncomfortable than a man who doesn't need it to survive. Number 2, people constantly mistake your silence for weakness until you drop a truth bomb that flattens the room. That's the brutal, frustrating, and sometimes hilarious reality of being a Sigma male. You're the guy sitting in the corner, not because you have nothing to say, but because you're filtering out the noise. You're studying, calculating, measuring the room. And while everyone else is tripping over themselves trying to be heard, you're mastering the one thing they've forgotten how to do: observe. But in a world obsessed with volume and visibility, silence is misread as irrelevance. People think you're quiet because you're shy, unsure, or maybe even not that smart. And you let them believe it, because correcting them would be a waste of energy. Then that one moment comes, that perfect crack in the noise, when you speak up. Not to compete, but to shift the entire trajectory of the conversation. You say, one thing and the room goes dead. Not because you're trying to stun anyone, but because the clarity and weight behind your words don't come from ego. They come from watching, learning, and waiting, and that's what throws people off. They've already built a version of you in their head, the quiet guy with nothing to offer. So when you drop a statement that slices through everyone's mental fog, their brains short-circuit. Here's the twist. It's not a power move for you. You're not sitting there plotting how to dominate the conversation. You genuinely don't care about that. You just don't waste your voice on fluff. You don't speak unless what you say actually shifts something. But the moment you finally say something meaningful, people start re-evaluating everything they thought about you. That silence they mocked, now it feels intimidating. That calm energy. Suddenly it feels like control. You didn't change, you revealed, and they weren't ready for it. The truth is, being a Sigma male means constantly being underestimated until you're not. And by then, it's already too late for them to catch up. You're not behind because you're quiet. You're ahead because you never needed to scream. You were just waiting for the right moment to strike with precision. And you always do. Number 3, you struggle to explain yourself because your clarity doesn't need external validation. You don't operate by popular logic, and that throws people off. You make choices based on something deeply internal, a gut instinct, a quiet knowing, a feeling that doesn't beg for applause or make sense to others on paper. So when people ask, "Why are you doing that?" or "What's your 5-year plan?" you don't always have a neat, packaged answer. Not because you're lost, but because you're already sure. You don't need to explain it to yourself, so why explain it to them? That's where the tension begins. The world is built on formulas, templates, and step-by-step blueprints. If you can't point to a rulebook or quote a trending TED Talk, people get nervous. Your calm certainty, uncertified, unverified, unmarketed, starts to look suspicious. Because we live in a culture that values proof over intuition, popularity over personal truth. You don't post your progress, you don't seek constant feedback, and you don't care if your path makes sense to anyone but you. That kind of confidence, without a PowerPoint presentation, makes people uncomfortable. They want you to justify everything. Why you left that job, why you ghosted that toxic friend, why you didn't follow the same timeline everyone else did. But your clarity doesn't come with a disclaimer, it just is. You don't need to explain your every move because you already know you're aligned. And if you tried to explain it, it would sound like nonsense to people who only know how to move when someone gives them permission. You're not being vague, you're being precise, in a language they don't speak. That's the burden. Being a Sigma male means living with this inner clarity that doesn't ask for directions, doesn't need approval, and definitely doesn't care about the script. But to the outside world, that kind of self-trust looks like rebellion, like arrogance, or worse, like confusion. They think you're lost just because you're not asking for a map. But here's the truth. When you know where you're going, you stop explaining the route. And those who keep demanding an explanation, they were never going to understand it anyway. Number 4, you're a magnet for emotional parasites who think you're their personal rehab center. There's something about your calm that draws people in like moths to a flame, but not the good kind, the draining kind, the ones who carry emotional baggage like it's designer luggage and assume your quiet presence means you're available to unpack it for them. You don't go around offering therapy sessions, but your unshakable energy, your non-reactive nature, and your ability to actually listen make people feel safe. Sounds noble, right? The truth is, it often turns into chaos. People start treating you like a human sponge. They offload their drama, trauma, and unresolved mess onto you, without asking if you're even open for business. And because you don't immediately push them away or judge them, they take that as a green light to go all in. You're not giving advice, they're extracting it. You're not offering support, they're demanding it. You become their emotional crutch, their backup generator, their emergency contact when life explodes. But here's the kicker. They never actually want to heal. They just want to hang out in your stability like it's a 5-star resort. They admire your depth, but they show up to dive with floaties on, expecting you to do the swimming for them. They say things like, "You just get me," or "I feel so calm around you." But what they really mean is, "I like how you absorb my chaos without requiring me to fix anything." It's not flattering, it's exhausting. And the worst part? When you finally start pulling away to protect your peace, they flip it on you. Suddenly, you're emotionally unavailable. You're cold? No, you're just not a dumping ground. You didn't sign up to be someone's therapist, priest, or emotional life coach just because you know how to sit in silence without freaking out. You attract these people because your energy, it feels like peace in a world built on panic. But peace isn't free, and you've learned sometimes the most compassionate thing you can do is build a wall with a very clear sign, not a rehab center. Bring your own life jacket. Number 5, your ambition is so internal, it's invisible. People love to measure ambition by noise, how loud you are about your goals, how much you post about your grind, how visibly busy you seem. But your ambition, it's buried deep in your bones, quiet and relentless. It doesn't need a motivational quote every morning or a camera in your face while you work. It just moves, silently, steadily, and without applause. That's why people mistake you for someone who's coasting, chilling, maybe even underachieving. They don't see fireworks, so they assume there's nothing going on. Meanwhile, you're building something they wouldn't even recognize if you put it right in front of them. You don't broadcast your hustle. You don't perform ambition. For clout, you just execute. And because your energy isn't chaotic or thirsty for attention, people forget to take you seriously until it's too late. One day they wake up and you're miles ahead. You've built something solid, and they're still running in circles, wondering how the quiet guy pulled it off without the noise, the announcements, the fake hustle porn. You move like a ghost in the system. No trail, no hype, no step-by-step. Blog post explaining your journey. You keep your focus tight and your circle even tighter. Nobody knows what you're really working on until the results are undeniable. And the best part, you never cared if they saw it coming. That's the whole point. Because for you, ambition isn't a show, it's a lifestyle. It's not about looking busy, it's about being obsessed with mastery, with results, with finishing what you start. While others are chasing visibility, you're chasing precision. While they're overcompensating with noise, you're refining your next move in silence. And when it's done, you don't need validation. You don't need to gloat. You don't even need to explain how you did it. You just stand there, calm and unmoved, while everyone else scrambles to figure out how they missed the warning signs. They thought you were coasting. You were building the storm. Number 6, you exist outside the algorithm, so you often go unseen until you're unignorable. You don't play the algorithm's game, and because of that, the world tends to overlook you. You're not chasing likes, followers, or the dopamine drip of digital approval. You're not posting every thought, every move, every moment for applause. You're moving in silence, building quietly, thinking deeply, and in a culture addicted to the loudest voice in the room that makes you practically invisible until you're not. The world is built to reward performers, the ones who overshare, overexpose, and overexplain. People who package themselves like a product, optimize for engagement, and dance for attention on command. But that's not you. You're not trying to trend, you're trying to transcend. Your value doesn't scream, it hums. It moves beneath the surface, too subtle for short attention spans and too complex for shallow minds. Yet, when your impact finally hits, it hits hard because it wasn't designed to go viral. It was designed to last. While everyone else is chasing quick impressions, you're planting ideas that simmer, actions that ripple, energy that lingers. You're not the guy with 10 flashy projects and no real legacy. You're the one who shows, upshakes the foundation, then disappears without needing credit. And that unignorable moment, It always comes, because while the algorithm favors fast and fake, real power is slow, quiet, and precise. People may not see you coming, but they feel you when you arrive. Not because you forced your presence on them, but because your presence shifts something that can't be explained in metrics or analytics. That's what confuses people. You weren't in the race, but somehow you're ahead. You didn't follow the format, but somehow your work outlasted the hype. You don't advertise your moves, yet your results show up like undeniable proof that you were never behind. You were just operating on a wavelength too refined for the masses. So yeah, you may be overlooked, underestimated, even misunderstood. But that's fine. Let them scroll past. Let them count you out. Because when the noise fades, and it always does, the world is forced to stop and notice what's real. And when that moment hits, you're not just seen, you're unforgettable. Number 7, your loyalty is diamond hard but nearly impossible to earn. Your loyalty isn't casual, it's a blood pact. It's not something you hand out because someone was nice to you twice or shared the same Spotify playlist. It's built through time, tested by fire, and forged in quiet observations that others don't even realize you're making. You watch how people treat others when no one's watching. You pay attention to consistency, not charisma. And until someone proves they can stand next to you without shifting like sand, you keep your guard exactly where it belongs, up. Because once you let someone in, you're all in. No halfway, no conditional trust, no maybe if they prove themselves a little more. When you decide someone is solid, you'll go to war for them. You'll defend them behind their back, hold their secrets like a vault, and show up when it's inconvenient. Not because you expect the same in return, but because loyalty to you is a matter of personal integrity. But here's where it gets brutal. That level of depth is rare, and most people don't value it until it's gone. They mistake your calm for softness, your silence for passivity. They think you'll keep taking hits because you don't explode. What they don't realize is your patience isn't permission, it's observation. And when you see betrayal, disloyalty, or manipulation for what it is, you don't give second chances. You drop the curtain. When it's over, it's done. You don't do drama. You don't announce exits, and you don't leave doors half open. You go nuclear, but in silence. You vanish. You cut emotional ties like a surgeon. No yelling, no warning, just absence. And that absence, it hits harder than any confrontation ever could. People feel the weight of losing you because you weren't just another friend, partner, or ally. You were a one-man fortress, a calm, unshakable force in a world full of flaky, two-faced chaos. And when you walk away, they don't just lose a connection, they lose protection. So yes, your loyalty is diamond hard. But diamonds don't form overnight, and they sure as hell don't belong in everyone's hands. You protect it like it's sacred, because it is. And if someone ever manages to break it, they don't just lose your loyalty. They lose access to a version of you they'll never get back. Number 8. You're expected to explain your solitude as if it's a sickness. People treat solitude like a red flag. If you're not constantly showing up at every event, joining every group chat, or collecting people like Pokemon cards, they assume something must be wrong with you. They think you're avoiding the world because you're damaged, shy, or socially inept. But here's what they miss entirely. You're not avoiding people, you're avoiding nonsense. You're not lonely, you're selective. And that makes people uncomfortable because most of them haven't developed the ability to sit with themselves, let alone enjoy it. They want a reason for your silence. They want to diagnose your peace. Why don't you come out more? You should network. Don't you feel isolated? No, you don't. You feel clear. You feel in control. You don't see the point in throwing yourself into chaotic crowds where the loudest voices say the least. You're not going to waste energy on surface-level connections just to seem socially adjusted. You've outgrown the addiction to being seen just for the sake of it. Your solitude isn't a cry for help, it's a filter. The ones who truly see you, they don't need to be entertained. They get the silence. They don't need constant access to your energy to feel connected to you. The rest, they're not being rejected, they're just not on your frequency. But the world struggles with that. It wants everyone plugged in, always performing, always accessible. Your detachment breaks the unwritten rules of belonging. It challenges the idea that someone needs a crowd to have value. So instead of understanding your space, people pathologize it. They try to pull you into their overstimulated chaos and call it normal. But you're not playing that game. You don't measure your worth by how many people know your name or how often your phone buzzes. You don't need a packed calendar to feel alive. You choose depth over drama, silence over small talk, and intentionality over impulse. And in a world where loneliness is confused with independence, that makes you look dangerous. So when they ask you to explain your solitude, you don't owe them a breakdown. You just smile. Because while they're exhausting themselves trying to belong everywhere, you've already found peace in not needing to belong at all. Number 9, you're constantly underestimated. Until you execute like a sniper, people love to write you off before you even begin. You're quiet, you don't brag, you don't announce your every move, so they label you passive or worse, harmless. They see your silence and mistake it for weakness, your calm for a lack of fire. That's their first mistake. What they don't realize is that you're not inactive, you're calculating. You observe quietly, absorb information, and plan your moves like a sniper zeroing in on a target. No wasted energy, no impulsive leaps, just cold, deliberate focus. And when you finally act, the shift is seismic. Suddenly, the same person who was too quiet or too calm is now intense, ruthless, even unpredictable. But the truth is, you've always been that way. You were just patient. You don't rush to play the game. You wait for the perfect moment, when your move can't be ignored and hits with maximum impact. That's why your actions catch people off guard. They thought you were standing still, when in reality you were lining everything up for a precise strike. This underestimation is your secret weapon. Quiet people get underestimated all the time, and you use that to your advantage. They never see the preparation, the internal strategizing. So when you move, it feels sudden and overwhelming. But to you, it's just the natural outcome of careful calculation. And no, being ruthless isn't about cruelty, it's about efficiency. You don't waste time on drama or pointless conflict. You don't make noise for the sake of being heard. You remove obstacles without fanfare and move forward with cold focus. People misinterpret this as harshness. They don't understand the discipline behind your silence. You're not intense because you're emotional. You're intense because you respect your time and energy. You're not ruthless because you don't care. You're ruthless because you do. About your goals, your values, and the life you're building, and nothing, not their opinions, not their doubts, will derail you. Number 10, you carry your own gravity. You don't chase. You don't follow. You don't submit to trends. You move through life differently, and that unnerves people. You're not trying to be seen, yet people notice you. You're not asking for attention, but you command it effortlessly. It's not the loudness of your voice that draws others in, it's the stillness in your presence. You carry your own gravitational field. When you walk into a room, people can't quite explain why they're watching you. You don't wear a billboard. Version of confidence. You're anchored, and that throws people off. Most people are conditioned to chase trends, approval, and belonging. They bend themselves to fit into whatever mold is being applauded that day. But you're rooted in something they don't understand. Self. You don't perform or compete for validation. You don't adjust your tone, look, or opinions to match the room. You are the room. That self-containment makes you magnetic. At first, people are curious. They try to figure you out like a riddle. They ask surface questions, test your reactions, and poke around the edges of your personality looking for a crack. But when they realize there's no easy access, no emotional buttons to press, no insecurity to exploit, they grow frustrated. The truth is, most people don't actually want mystery. They want control. They want to define you, label you, and box you in because it makes them feel safe. But you don't give them that. You're unreadable in a world that thrives on oversharing. You're calm in a culture that glorifies chaos. You're still in a society that mistakes speed for progress. When people can't figure you out, they either idolize you or quietly resent you, sometimes both. One moment you're inspiring, the next they call you arrogant. They want what? You have presence, peace, and power, but without doing what you do, detaching from the noise. You don't need to chase because what's meant for you gravitates to you naturally. People feel that, and those who don't understand it, they either try to copy it, manipulate it, or destroy it. But they can never match it, because your gravity doesn't come from force. It comes from the fact that you've already claimed yourself, and you're not giving that up for anyone. Number 11, people try to fix you, but you're not broken, you're not detached, you're discerning, and that unsettles people. When you don't fit their script, they assume something must be wrong. They label you as cold, distant, or unreachable. Words that sound like diagnoses, but are really just misunderstandings. You've learned to filter the noise from the signal. You don't feel the need to broadcast every thought and feeling like a walking billboard. Your identity isn't a product to be marketed or a character to perform. It's a steady internal state, and that confuses a world obsessed with visibility. In a culture chasing likes, shares, and validation, your silence looks suspicious, but you're not hiding. You're protecting your energy, your peace, your clarity. Authenticity for you isn't about volume. It's about truth, and your truth doesn't need an audience. People who try to fix you are really trying to mold you into their own reflection. They want you to mirror their insecurities, so they feel less alone. But you won't do it. You don't fit their mold, and that unsettles them. So they push harder, misunderstanding your discernment for detachment, your focus for coldness, your boundaries for rejection. But you can't force understanding on those who are trapped in their own noise. All you can do is stay grounded, stay quiet, stay selective. Because in the end, the only thing that's broken is the world's expectation that everyone should wear their soul on their sleeve. Number 12, you attract people who want the mystery, but can't handle the reality. To most people, you're a puzzle wrapped in a riddle, and they can't get enough of trying to solve you. But they don't want the real, complicated, messy truth. They want the idea of you, the mysterious enigma they can project their fantasies onto, because that's easier, that's exciting. The problem? The real you comes with silence, solitude, and boundaries, and most people aren't ready for that. When they finally meet the actual person behind the mystery, they freeze. The fantasy breaks. People love the chase of the unknown, but they hate the commitment to its reality. They want you to be intriguing and elusive, but also easy to understand and endlessly available. That's a contradiction you've learned to live with. Your solitude isn't a void, it's a fortress. Your depth isn't just an aesthetic, it's an ocean. And your boundaries aren't walls to keep people out, they're lines that protect your peace. But most people don't handle boundaries well. They see them as rejection instead of self-respect. So they pull away or push harder, demanding that you shrink to fit their comfort zone. They want the thrill of the mystery without the work of understanding it. Only a few stick around. They're rare. They don't just want the fantasy. They want the full package. They accept the solitude, the silence, the unwavering sense of self. They respect your space, your quiet power, and the fierce loyalty you reserve only for those who truly deserve it. Yes, you attract people who want your mystery like a drug, but most can't handle the real thing. That's their loss, not yours, because you're not here to be someone's fantasy. You're here to be unapologetically you. Conclusion: The brutal truth about being a Sigma male. Being a Sigma male isn't about fitting neatly into society's boxes or playing by someone else's rules. It's about owning a space others can't or won't occupy. A space defined by self-reliance, quiet intensity, and an unshakable internal compass. You carry your own gravity. You move with purpose. You command respect without demanding it. But this way of being comes with a price. You're misunderstood, underestimated, even resented, simply because you refuse to conform to the chaos. Your independence challenges people. Your calm invites both admiration and envy. Your loyalty is rare, fiercely protected, and devastating when withdrawn. You attract people who want the mystery, but not the solitude. The idea, but not the depth. They want to fix you, not realizing you're already whole. At the core of it all, being a Sigma male means embracing a paradox. Deeply connected to yourself, yet often disconnected from the world's expectations. You don't shout to be heard. You don't follow the crowd to lead. Your power lies in your quiet resilience, your selective engagement, and your refusal to trade authenticity for approval. This path isn't for everyone. And that's exactly the point. It's a lonely road, but one of the most freeing ways to live. You're not surviving in the margins, you're thriving on your own terms, and in a world obsessed with noise, your silence is the loudest statement you'll ever make.